Hello all, welcome to the Solocast of Fire Code Tech. In these episodes, it's just going to be me, your host, Gus Gagliardi. There's going to be a range of topics, but I'm going to talk about specific technologies, installation standards, codes and how they work, as well as some other interesting topics that don't neatly fit inside of the context of a normal interview. Hello all, welcome to episode 38 of Fire Code Tech, the Solocast series. In this episode, we're talking about Revit. Revit is a 3D modeling software, and in this episode, we're going to break down the history of the modeling software, some of the features that make it a industry titan, and the background on my tips for how to be proficient and efficient in Revit. Thank you all for listening. If you could do me a big favor and go hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. You could listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, wherever you like to listen, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would do me a huge favor and go and give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps out with the algorithm and is a great way to show support that doesn't cost you a dime. And also give us a follow on social media. With that being said, thank you all for listening, and let's get into the show. So I wanted to talk about Revit because Revit is the 3D modeling software that is I'd say it's the number one in the architecture, engineering, and construction community for how design drawings and contract documents get developed. I've had the opportunity to use Revit since about 2017, and over the last 5 years I have gained some level of proficiency with it. But Revit is 3D modeling software. A lot of people are very acquainted with 2D modeling software that is still in common use, that is AutoCAD. Both of these technologies or softwares are owned by Autodesk. Autodesk is a software company that acquired Revit. We're going to go over a little bit about the history of Revit, but the reason why I want to talk about this subject is that I'm fascinated with Revit, and it is unavoidable if you do business on medium to large facilities in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, and maybe for some professionals who aren't as mired in the details of the production of construction documents or the contract document production, then this might be informational for you. So the history of Revit is that the company was founded in 1997, and it originally had a different name, and then it was changed to Revit Technology Corporation in 2000. And then in about 2002, so the product Revit was generated by a venture capitalist-backed company, and it was developed, and they had attempted some other software projects before, and then they finally struck pay dirt with Revit and sold the company to Autodesk in 2002 to the tune of over $130 million. There are a lot of 3D modeling softwares, but the biggest advantage of Revit in specific is its ability to associate modeled elements with database parameters. So for those of you who maybe have never worked with Revit, if you draw a wall in Revit, you can generate a wall, and there will be a variety of properties that are associated with the wall. How tall is the wall? How wide is the wall? Where is it located in the project? What type of wall is it? Is it a brick wall? Is it a concrete wall? And so the wall will have its own specific ID, and all of these properties and characteristics will be logged inside the program. So if you have a building that you've modeled and you have hundreds of walls, you can make a schedule in which all of the walls will be displayed on an not quite Excel, but a tabular inventory similar to Excel's layout, in which you can revise elements within the schedule to alter the modeled elements. So if I go into the wall schedule in this hypothetical scenario, and I select all the walls in the project, and I decide to change the property of the walls from a brick wall or a masonry wall into a concrete block wall, you can do that instantaneously with just the click of a button. And so this is the big competitive advantage of Revit, and the kind of differentiator from its competitors. A couple of its competitors are ArchiCAD and Reflex. I don't know too much about these. By and large, Revit is, for most firms that I've ever worked with, the dozens of engineering and consulting firms I've worked with, it's either CAD or Revit. Revit is pretty much unavoidable for projects after they reach a certain complexity. So Revit, even the name of Revit, has to do with this competitive advantage of the database being associated with the model elements, and the model elements being associated with the database parameters. And I've seen this term, it's called bidirectional associativity. So the ability to modify parameters in the database and change properties in the modeled elements, and vice versa. So the name Revit comes from a contraction of the two words revise instantly. So I found that pretty interesting as somebody who's been working with this program for half a decade and didn't even really know why it's called Revit. I always just thought it was some random name that didn't have any real meaning, but of course that's not the case. So Revit is not only just a benefit to users during the design and construction phase of a building's life cycle. Revit can be, and building information modeling can be of value to a building owner or engineers, or really anybody at any stage of the building's life cycle. It can be a benefit in design, during construction, the main life cycle of the building as people are using it, and BIM models can be used to keep accurate logs of maintenance and other features within the buildings during the operation of the building, and then all the way to the death of the building in the demolition. There might be valuable information in the destruction of a building in a building information model, more specifically a Revit model. So this is a concept that's really gained traction, I'd say, within the last decade. Revit's been around since 2002, but I think in my experience and from people I've talked to in the industry, it's really taken a hold since around the 2010-2012 range, and so it's around to stay. It's gaining more traction all the time. I work with less and less clients who refuse to use the 3D modeling capabilities, so it's a very interesting piece of software. Revit utilizes something it calls families in order to model 3D elements. So there are a variety of Revit families, and Many are out of the box ready to go, and you can also create custom families. And when you think about Revit families, they're just a 3D or 2D modeled element with associated parameters. So let's give my 4 tips for Revit and becoming proficient with Revit. My first tip for Revit is to use your key bindings. Key bindings come with the out-of-the-box Revit key command as KS. So if you press KS, you will be able to go into Revit and assign different tasks, key commands. My recommendation would be to put as many key commands for common tasks able to be used by one hand, really your left hand, so that you can click with your mouse and your right hand and you can do key commands with your left hand. This will greatly improve with efficiency if you're not always having to look in the toolbar or ribbon for the command that you're looking for. And really, this is a software and PC recommendation in general. Anytime you're using a program that has key commands, it will save you, it may not seem like much time, but if there are a dozen different tasks that you use every day and you're spending, 6 seconds a task, 10 seconds a task looking on the ribbon for the right button, or if you just know that you can press it without even looking at the keyboard, if you are a proficient typer, it will save you mountains of time. Second tip is to understand the interface. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and read every tooltip for every Revit command. I don't think that's necessary, and most likely you're probably not going to use most of the different key commands. Probably you'll use a select variety of key commands and use those most frequently until you gain some proficiency. But what I am saying is to understand the interface. Look at the major tabs and the components on the perimeter of the program in order to get a good sense of what are the features. So you don't have to look inside all of the system tabs, but I would say try to get as much situational awareness about the buttons on the extreme perimeter of the program, and that will help you. It kind of goes from the outside of the program more broad to more specific as you get into the ribbons. Don't know if that makes sense. Probably needs a visual, but that's tip number 2. Know your interface. Tip number 3 is make sure that you have all your tabs turned on. So you can go to options in Revit, and out of the box sometimes not all the systems tabs will be turned on. So I know I've installed Revit before and had to turn on the electrical system components in order to get fire alarm devices to show up or display. So if you're having trouble finding something, be sure to go and take a look and make sure that you have all of your tool ribbons turned on. My last tip is to take a course. If you are just starting out with Revit, there are some good free resources on YouTube, and I'll drop a link to a full free course in Revit produced by Fire Code Camp. Fire Code Camp is a software development company, but they do tutorials on a broad variety of subjects. I've used Fire Code Camp for learning how to get started with web development, but if you're interested in learning how to code, or if you're interested in learning about Revit, you can check out the YouTube in the description. Also, just as a last note, Revit has a interface for programming. So Revit is designed in C++, I believe, but there are interfaces with Python, and you can also use the visual-based coding of Dynamo, which is built into the program to automate some of your tasks in Revit. That's all I have. Hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to share the episode with a friend if you enjoyed it. Don't forget that fire protection and life safety is serious business. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are by no means a professional consultation or a codes and standards interpretation. Be sure to contact a licensed professional if you are getting involved with fire protection and or life safety. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.